Do you know that you can pull up information on any Minnesota lake using your smartphone or your tablet? And did you know you could also make a camping reservation using your device? We caught up with the Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources, Tom Landwehr, to talk about this new change in technology and many more issues concerning the DNR. Commissioner, I want to begin with something that actually was not a legislative action per se. The governor is touting it as kind of an unsession activity, and that's the DNR becoming a bit more, for lack of a better phrase, user-friendly. A lot of different options of mobile apps are available now through the DNR. What kind of information can Minnesotans obtain from their phone? Well,
it's really fun stuff. I mean, the governor has made it a point of his whole term that we're going to be more available to the public, you know, better government, that kind of a thing. And we know that a lot of Minnesotans use the services, use the assets we manage. So we're really trying to, you know, stay ahead of the curve a little bit, or stay with the curve anyways in terms of technology, but also get information out there in a user-friendly way. So most recently what we rolled out was what we call Fish Minnesota, mndnr.gov/fishmn.
And we'll make sure we provide those websites to people as well.
And it's really, you know, if you are an angler in Minnesota, you know that we have a little booklet of fishing regulations. And when I say little, it's kind of like this kind of little. It's small in format, but it's many, many pages. Because as we've managed our fish populations, we've gone more and more to individual lake management plans. So if you fish any particular lake, the restrictions there might be different than they are on another lake. And in addition, we've got invasive species, things people need to be aware about, and there's just a lot of information available about different lakes. So we have now, it's a mobile app, it's actually a web-based app, but it really comes up nicely on a smartphone, for instance. And you click on it and identify the lake you want information on. Up comes really all the information, or a lot of information that people might find useful. So for instance, a map comes up, a depth map that shows the contours of the lake. It shows where the public access is on the lake. It'll talk about what species that are in there. It'll tell you what the latest trapping results were on the fish surveys. It'll tell you what's stocked in there. And in addition, it'll tell you invasive species, and it'll tell you any special regulations. So all on your smartphone. If all you ever fish is one lake, you just click on it and all the information's right there.
And as a person who has dropped her cell phone in a lake, it's probably a good idea to utilize this app before you get in the water?
Well, you can use it at home and you can use it on the lake. Now, you know, I'm in that club as well. You know, it's amazing how an ice fishing hole 8 inches in diameter seems to be the center of the universe when anything hits the ice. But so that's a good example. You can make a park reservation on your smartphone now. You can you can purchase a license. We've combined a lot of our purchase type activities under what we call Shop DNR now on the website, so you can get that. And most recently we rolled out a Minnesota permitting and reporting system for people who have wells that they have to monitor and report back to DNR, or if people are going to engage in some wetland activity where they need a permit from DNR. So just a whole bunch of information available now readily on smartphones and on the computer.
Okay, Commissioner, let's transition now into some of the work from the legislature, or of the legislature. You brought up invasive species.
Right.
Good place to start. There's $4 million allocated for research at the U of M. What are some of the key concerns with invasive species? Are they the same, or do you find that there are some growing trends?
You know, it's a constant mix, because, you know, most recently Congress acted to close the Upper St. Anthony Falls lock and dam. Now that helps us immensely with something like invasive carp. So there's 4 invasive carp species. The silver carp is the one that you see jumping in the movies and video clips and so on. The closing of that lock within a year will prevent the spread of that species up into the Brainerd Lakes area. So that is kind of one front, if you will, on invasive species. But I think one of the things that's most concerning to Minnesotans is zebra mussels. You know, there's a lot of vegetative invasive species like water milfoil, but zebra mussels are one that really has caught people's attention. And that's one that most of the spread is done by people either moving a boat or moving some kind of water equipment like a dock, or moving minnow buckets and so on. And so we have a large program, as you know, to educate people about that so that people don't inadvertently move invasive species. But our long-term best strategy has got to be investing in the research that identifies solutions that will actually kill or control zebra mussels, and that's what that money is for. It's for the University of Minnesota's Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center.
Okay, Commissioner, let's talk about the $63 million for various projects, from fixing up state parks to acquiring land for new trails. The DNR says it has about $2 billion in needs, however. So what can this $63 million do? How can this start that process?
Well, let's go back to the $2 billion. The $2 billion is really a number that is a rough estimate of our total value of fixed assets. So if you think of the park buildings, if you think of the trails, and we have 3,000 miles of road that we manage on state forests and a number of bridges, and in addition we have 2,800 buildings, some of which are office buildings. So we have a $2 billion inventory of human-created assets. Now, you know, in a business or in any kind of home management, you would figure that you need to set aside 1 to 5% of that value per year just to in order to do maintenance, you know, put paint on the walls, you know, re-roof and that kind of a thing. So we calculate that we should have between $20 and $30 million per year just to keep those assets functional. Otherwise, they're just in a long-term state of decay. So we put in a request to the governor's office. What we ended up with was substantially less than what we were hoping for what we call asset preservation, that taking care of our buildings. So we got $10 million essentially for asset preservation, and that will go to, you know, sanitation buildings on state parks, maintenance of trails and paved trails and bridges, some of our office upkeep and so on. But as you mentioned, we got $18 million for new state trails. You know, we have this desire to build new state trails while we're kind of forgetting to maintain our old state trails. But there's a number of really important state trail links that we'll do with that. We've got some flood damage reduction money to help up, especially in Red River Valley, deal with those long-term flooding problems. And so it's a large package that has a lot of different things in it. There's a little bit of money for reforestation in those areas where we had the wind blow down and so on. But it really is taking care of the state's assets, those things that belong to all the citizens of Minnesota.
Before we discuss what you're going to look for next legislative session, I want to talk about something that I found. The DNR will administer a $2 million grant program for shooting sports facilities, because trap shooting apparently is the fastest growing high school sport, according to the Minnesota State High School League.
Right.
This is a very unique partnership. I would never have thought the DNR and the High School Association would, or High School League would be partnering. So talk a little bit about this.
Well, the Minnesota State High School Clay Target League is, as you mentioned, just a tremendously growing activity. They started about 2009 with some 60 students in 6 schools. This year, 6,000 students in 275 schools. This weekend in Alexandria, they'll actually have the championship. They're going to have 4,000 high school students participating in this championship. So it is just really growing very, very quick. Obviously, they need a place to shoot, right? And it's shotguns, it's clay targets. And what we find is that in general, the folks that provide those ranges, it's mostly clubs and so on, over time they've been seeing a loss of members and a reduction in the quality of their facilities. And so with this growth, we're trying to encourage that participation in a safe manner by helping the clubs out with some of that. One of the things people may not realize is that the department gets a substantial amount of money from the federal government that is a return of excise taxes on hunting and fishing equipment. So on hunting equipment, it's called the Pittman-Robertson Fund. 11% tax is applied to all hunting equipment, and the state gets that back. And that's used for things like conservation as well as shooting sports. So we have a federal funding source that's going to provide that $2 million.
Okay, Commissioner, we are out of time, so I'm going to save my questions on the 2015 legislative session until your next appearance. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
I'd be glad to be back.